In Japan, rice is more than food. It's the heart of every meal and a symbol of comfort and stability. For centuries, life has followed the rhythm of planting and harvesting this essential grain. A bowl of steaming gohan connects families and communities, woven into rituals and daily life. Because rice is so central, its price and supply are matters of national importance. When rice is affordable and plentiful, households feel secure. But when that stability is threatened, anxiety spreads quickly. In 2025, that anxiety became reality. Japan is facing a rice crisis unlike any in decades. Prices have soared, shelves are sometimes empty, and stores are rationing rice. This crisis is about more than numbers. It's about how weather, human behavior, and old policies can shake a nation. Our journey to understand this crisis begins with the shocking numbers that signaled something was terribly wrong. The crisis became undeniable when rice prices nearly doubled in June 2025, up 99% from the previous year. For many Japanese families, this was more than just a number on a chart. It was a sudden shock that rippled through daily life, changing routines and forcing difficult choices at the checkout counter. A 5-kilogram bag that cost 2,100 yen last year now sells for over 4,200 yen. The price tag, once a minor detail, became a symbol of the crisis, and shoppers found themselves double-checking every yen spent. This kind of price shock is rare in Japan, a country known for price stability. For decades, Japanese consumers have relied on steady prices for essentials, and sudden spikes like this are almost unheard of. The surge built up rapidly. By March, prices were up 92%, and by May, the increase hit a record 101%. News broadcasts tracked the rise almost daily, and supermarket staff scrambled to keep up with the constant price changes. For families, this meant real hardship. Household budgets stretched thin, and rice aisles in Tokyo supermarkets often empty. Parents worried about how to provide for their children, and many began searching for cheaper alternatives or cutting back on other groceries. Stores began rationing, limiting purchases to one bag per family, fueling long lines and a sense of scarcity. The rationing measures, rarely seen in modern Japan, brought back memories of more difficult times. The sight of people queuing for rice unsettled many, a reminder of past emergencies. Elderly shoppers in particular recalled post-war shortages, and the anxiety was palpable in every line. For a nation where rice is a daily staple, a 100% price hike is a direct hit to the cost of living. Every meal became a reminder of the crisis, and families had to make tough decisions about how much rice to serve. The government and Bank of Japan have struggled to contain broader inflation, with rice at the center of public concern. Officials faced mounting pressure to act, as public frustration grew louder with each passing week. These numbers aren't just statistics. They represent a painful burden for millions of Japanese households. Behind every price tag is a story of sacrifice, worry, and the hope that relief will come soon. The roots of the crisis trace back to the scorching summer of 2023, which devastated Japan's rice harvest. Extreme heat damaged crops, reducing both the quantity and quality of rice. This poor harvest created a real shortage. The situation worsened when government earthquake warnings in 2024 triggered panic buying. People rushed to stock up, draining already low inventories. Traders and wholesalers, sensing opportunity, began hoarding rice, waiting for prices to climb even higher. Hoarding squeezed supply further, inflating prices and deepening the sense of scarcity. These three factors, a poor harvest, panic buying, and hoarding, created a perfect storm. Each problem fed the next, turning a difficult year into a national crisis. Store shelves emptied, and families worried about their next meal. Natural events and human reactions combined to make rice suddenly scarce in a country that depends on it. Beyond weather and panic, old government policies made the crisis worse. For decades, Japan paid farmers to grow less rice, aiming to keep prices high and stable. This Genten policy left little room for error. When harvests failed, there was no surplus. Strict import limits and sky-high tariffs kept foreign rice out, even in emergencies. The system worked in normal years, but in 2025, it left Japan with no backup plan. When the 2023 harvest failed, there was no extra land to plant or cheap imports to fill the gap. The crisis exposed the risks of a tightly controlled protectionist system. Policies meant to protect farmers ended up making consumers vulnerable. Now, Japan faces tough questions about whether these old rules still make sense in a changing world. With prices soaring, the government took drastic action, releasing its emergency rice stockpile, a move usually reserved for disasters. This helped slow price increases, and new Agriculture Minister Shigeru Koizumi accelerated the release in May. Prices dropped from a peak of 4,300 yen per bag to about 3,500 yen, still high, but a relief for many. However, the reserves are finite, and by July, much of the stockpile was gone. Experts warned that if another poor harvest hit, Japan would have no safety net left. The emergency release was a double-edged sword. It calmed the market but depleted a critical resource. The government's quick fix solved today's problem but left the country exposed for tomorrow. The crisis raised urgent questions about Japan's long-term food security. In an era of climate uncertainty, relying on emergency reserves is a risky gamble. For families across Japan, the rice crisis brought daily stress and forced them to make difficult, sometimes painful choices about their lives and routines. Parents like Mrs. Tanaka in Osaka found themselves cutting back on other foods, skipping family outings, and even saying no to small treats, all just to afford enough rice for their children. Many families switched to bread or noodles, a significant change in a culture where rice is not just a staple, but a symbol of home and tradition. For children, it meant unfamiliar meals, and for elders, it was a reminder of harder times. Supermarket rationing forced people to plan their shopping trips around rice deliveries, with some waking up early or waiting in long lines, hoping to get their share before supplies ran out. Farmers, meanwhile, faced their own pressures, feeling the weight of the nation's expectations as they struggled with unpredictable weather and shrinking yields. Higher prices didn't help those with poor harvests and little to sell. For many, the fields that once promised security now brought only anxiety and disappointment. Farmers like Nobuhiko Kurosawa worried that another hot summer could be catastrophic, especially with reserves depleted and no guarantee of recovery next season. Restaurants, especially small family-run ones, struggled as rice costs soared. Some raised prices, others absorbed losses, and many worried about losing loyal customers who could no longer afford to eat out. The crisis threatened the survival of these businesses and the traditions they represent, putting at risk the unique flavors and community spaces that define Japanese neighborhoods. Beyond economics, the crisis created social anxiety. Long lines and empty shelves shook public confidence, making people question whether their basic needs would be met. The shared worry over rice became a national conversation, exposing the fragility of systems people once took for granted, and sparking debates about food security and government responsibility. The problem was no longer abstract. It changed what people ate, how they shopped, and how they saw their future, leaving a lasting mark on daily routines and family traditions. The rice crisis touched every part of daily life in Japan, reminding everyone just how deeply food, culture, and community are intertwined. The rice crisis quickly became a political disaster for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Public anger over soaring prices sent his approval ratings to record lows. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party suffered its worst election result in 15 years, losing its lower house majority. With another crucial election looming, polls suggest the government may lose control of the upper house as well. If that happens, Ishiba could be forced to resign after less than a year in office. The crisis has turned into a political firestorm, threatening to topple the government. The price of rice is now the price of political survival. Japan's leadership faces a test it cannot afford to fail. Japan's rice crisis has drawn international attention, especially from the United States. President Trump's administration threatened new tariffs on Japanese goods unless Japan opens its rice market to more American imports. The deadline for these tariffs is August 1, 2025, putting huge pressure on Japan's government. Allowing more imports could ease the crisis and avoid a trade war, but it's politically explosive at home. Japan's powerful farm lobby fiercely opposes lowering protections, fearing for their livelihoods. The government is caught between angry consumers and a demanding ally. The crisis forces Japan to confront whether to protect its farmers at all costs or adapt to a more globalized food system. Navigating these pressures is becoming harder by the day. Japan now faces a series of tough choices that will shape not only its immediate future, but also the lives of generations to come. The nation stands at a crossroads, where every decision carries weight and consequence. The immediate hope is for a strong harvest this season, which could help replenish dwindling rice stocks and bring much-needed relief to families by lowering prices. Farmers across the country are working tirelessly, hoping their efforts will pay off. But relying on the weather alone is risky. As climate change accelerates, Japan faces more frequent and severe weather events, floods, droughts, and storms, that threaten to disrupt harvests and destabilize food security. In the long term, Japan must fundamentally rethink its agricultural policies. Ending the Genten system, which restricts rice production, and encouraging farmers to grow more, could help build a stronger buffer against future shocks. Supporting innovation and cooperation between generations of farmers will be key. Reforming import rules to allow greater flexibility during shortages is also being considered. By making it easier to bring in rice when needed, Japan can better protect its people from sudden supply disruptions. Balancing support for local farmers with the urgent need for a stable, affordable food supply will be a major challenge for policymakers. Ensuring rural communities thrive while keeping shelves stocked is a delicate task. The 2025 rice crisis is a wake-up call, exposing deep vulnerabilities in Japan's food system and forcing a national conversation about how to move forward. If Japan fails to adapt and make bold changes, future shortages could be even more severe, affecting millions and putting the nation's food security at risk. The choices made today will determine whether the image of an empty rice bowl becomes just a distant memory or a recurring reality for families across Japan. The nation's next steps will define its resilience, unity, and ability to overcome challenges for many years to come.